The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, coming to you cordless, everybody, live off the Intertube satellite. It's Thursday night, August 8th, 2024. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 11 a.m. in Singapore, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I am Jim Peters. Another edition of Jim Peters at Night is coming to you. This is episode number 147, if you're keeping track at home. Man, I hope you guys had a good day today. I did. A lot of stuff going on. First of all, I don't know what the deal is. It even cracked 70 degrees here today. I mean, it's actually cool. That's unusual for August. This is usually our hottest time of the year. Not unusual for it to be over 90, but not today. Matter of fact, I guess that's not going to happen until next week. So, you want to know what's going on? I'll tell you, we got it going on. You know, I'm okay boomer. That's what I am. Oh, and by the way, let me tell you something. I'm 68 years old. If you're under 60, if you're under 50, listen to me right now. There will be a day when you will have less energy. This really bugs the crap out of me. I mean, up until about 10 years ago, man, I could just go on forever. I could work. You know, I was a computer programmer for a long period of my time. I would lock myself in my office like 16, 20 hours nonstop with a bunch of Diet Cokes, just coding away, you know, and then I end up doing this. Then I end up editing websites. Who the hell knows? But my point is, I had an enormous amount of energy. There was about a 3-year period in the late 1990s where I was going to the gym at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not kidding. It's like, and there's nobody there. You got the place to yourself. It's fantastic. 24-hour gym. But here's the reason I'm bringing this up. It won't last forever. I mean, I'm still pretty energetic, but man, I can take a nap. Holy shit. I fell asleep it's 10 p.m. Central here. At 9, I sat down. I fell asleep for 15 minutes. Now it's like 9:15. I got to get going. Getting this show up and running is kind of like we're launching rockets. I'm not kidding. By the way, I'm very proud of myself. The last 2 nights, I've absolutely nailed the timer. It's like, because there's a part here, we got 3 or 4 different clocks going on. But at one point at the very end, I have to guess. So I've gotten pretty good at guessing. It takes our broadcast service about 20 seconds to connect to all the broadcast outlets we have. And so that's usually when I figure into that timing. But man, I've nailed it 2 nights in a row, basically for the first time ever. I actually got it down less than a second. So I'm proud of myself. It's like, yeah, I got shit going on now. Okay, so what do we got going on? I'll tell you what we got going on. First of all, I want to thank Martin Willis for joining us last night. He's the host of a podcast, UFO, a fascinating conversation. You know, if you haven't gotten this through your head now, listen to Uncle Jim again. The extraterrestrials are here. They've been coming here. They've been coming here for a long time, but now we pretty much know so. So if you want to go back and check, I'm talking to Steve McIntosh, the philosopher. It was about 2-3 weeks ago. This all starts to blend together. It's 147 shows, folks. And then I read that Ben Shapiro just did his 2000th show. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, shit. It's like, it was a long haul. You know, and all these guys, him, Adam Carolla, Joe Rogan, they did this for years and years and years without seeing any money whatsoever. You know, it's probably going to be my fate too. I don't know, whatever. But any rate, why did I bring that up? about that. Yeah, it was. Okay. So Martin Willis came on, and I was saying, here's the deal. Steve McIntosh was on the show, and he's a pretty rational guy. And at the end, we weren't talking about UFOs. We were talking about philosophy and what he calls integrated consciousness. It's a fascinating interview. If you want to go back and listen to it, I recommend Rumble for all our archive stuff. So at the end, I asked him, I said, what do you think about the UFO thing? What do you think? And he said, well, he says, the militaries now, they basically, there's irrefutable proof that these things are real. I said, yeah, there is. That's pretty cool. I'm glad you agree, And he said, yeah. But he said, I don't buy alien abduction, and I don't buy crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft, and I especially don't buy Bigfoot. And it's like, okay, all right, fine. But the thing is, so if you're going to use his standard, which is pretty rigid, the extraterrestrials are here. So I'm just telling you right now, get used to it. I don't know what's going to happen. Last night, Martin said he doesn't know if there's going to be any sort of real disclosure from the government. I don't either. I think it's just going to end up just being something that's just kind of assumed, just like Steve assumed it at some point, But the other thing, and I brought this up on the show before, and I brought this up with Martin. And now he started his podcast. Get a load of this in 2011. They only do theirs weekly. He's done about 620 shows, and they do it live. I don't know if they're always done a live. They're live on some digital radio station. I can't remember which one it is. But by the way, we'll have that stuff posted on our blog tomorrow. We haven't done it yet. My apologies. Yeah, this is the reason I need a nap, because I'm losing my train of thought. But yeah, what was this? Yeah, who knows what the hell was I talking about? I'm talking about Martin Willis. About the fact that so he's been doing it since 2011. And I said to him, did anybody in 2011 that even know what a podcast was? I mean, that's going way back. That's about pretty much when it started. And I still remember when it started. Nobody took it seriously. Nobody. It was Adam Curry screwing around and 5 other guys. That was it. That was podcasting. I think he started in 2010, I think. So at any rate, so we got this going on here. And so tonight our guest is David Strom. He's an associate editor of hotair.com. He comes on here regularly. If you watch the show on a regular basis at all, he comes on about every 6 weeks. And he has 2 pieces up, and we will link to this tomorrow morning. He has 2 pieces up on Hot Air that are basically kind of bookend pieces about misinformation and how the government, and that would be specifically the Biden-Harris administration, how they have used literal brainwashing techniques. We're not talking figuratively here. They have literally used brainwashing techniques to keep you, the public, from actually knowing the truth about stuff. Everybody, I can't stress this enough. Everybody is lying through their teeth. Everyone. Because everyone apparently has something to cover up and hide, apparently. So with Joe, of course, with the fact that he was losing his marbles. And, everyone knew, apparently this started before 2019. People knew he was losing it even before then. So, they had to cover that. He was spent, famous basement campaign, man. Because they used COVID as the cover, and that seemed, logistically accurate to people who were watching, but it wasn't. They would have done it, and now they're trying to do the same thing with Kamala. I mean, Kamala answered her first question on the tarmac today from a reporter ever in 17, 18 days since she's been declared the candidate. She answered one question. It's just like, it's crazy. Meanwhile, Trump gave a whole 1-hour press conference. He's committed to that. He's also committed to doing 3 debates, and she has not responded. And of course, they'll say, "Oh, you're scared of me." Oh, God in heaven, no! Because I'll tell you my personal feeling. What I think is going to happen. I'm making a prediction right now. I think Kamala Harris is going to bode in those debates, especially the first one, pretty much as badly as Joe did. Because Kamala may not be senile, but she cannot string words together. She can't talk at all. And her campaign knows this. So They're going to keep her away from the press as long as possible. And she can't. I'll tell you why she can't talk. She can't talk because she's stupid as dirt. And I'm not exaggerating here. This woman does not have an IQ approaching 100. She doesn't. And it's like, and the fact that she's even being considered as a major party candidate for president is mind-boggling. Just mind-boggling. And of course, if you really look into this, the powers in the Democratic Party didn't want her to have it. And a lot of people think this is Joe Biden's ultimate revenge. Well, you took me off the ticket. F you. Let's put this person on. One thing that and Trump has even brought this up too. One thing about Joe, you can talk all you want about him being feeble and incapacitated. The fact is, and this is a fact, that he still polled better than any single other person that was hypothetically running against Trump, including Kamala. So, and that's simply true. I mean, okay, maybe he loses the election. Now, they are basically looking at all these brainwashing techniques to keep the public from noticing the fact that this woman is stupid, has no ideas, and really, especially important, can't actually accomplish anything. That's the other thing. It doesn't matter what you want to do as president. You need it. You need the talent to actually do it. And I've said this before, and I still stand to this. The only two presidents who actually seem to have a talent for actually getting anything done since Ronald Reagan is Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. That's it. Obama can bitch and moan about the Congress was against me. Yeah. Well, the Congress was more against Bill Clinton than they were against Obama. He had a harder time with them, and he still got an enormous amount of crap done because he knew. Newt Gingrich has said this in retrospect. He was the Speaker of the House, and he said, Bill Clinton knew how to negotiate. It was simple as that. He did. Barack Obama thinks he was above negotiating. We should just bow down to his exceptionalism. So anyway, okay. So that's what Donald. We've taped this interview with David Strom. We taped it this afternoon, so we're going to play that in a few minutes. And you really, seriously, you have to hear this, and also you have to read at least the second article that he wrote today, if not the two. They're basically a pair on the same subject. Excuse me. Because I asked him, and this is a terrible thing. I might not have asked him this on the air. It might have been after we're done. So I'm not certain if this got into the interview. It's like, you could, he talks about his dad. David Strom is about his dad was basically red pilled. His dad is a fierce liberal, has been all his life. And he said he finally got his dad to realize that the mainstream media has been basically lying through their teeth. And he said his dad finally got it. And he said, my dad's not going to become a Republican anytime soon. But still, he now understands what's going on with the press. And if I can do anything here to talk to you folks about how the world works, anything, it's that you have to realize that at this moment in time, what's considered the mainstream media, the legacy media in the United States, they're all completely lying for the Democratic cause. Completely. God, excuse me. They're not reporting news. They're not. They're saying whatever they need to say to get the Democratic machine elected. That's what they're doing. And I know that it doesn't seem to make sense on the surface. And in some ways, it doesn't make sense on the surface. You can make an argument these people are idiots. You could, and that argument could be very valid, but that's what's going on. So watch the interview with David and then check out these two articles he wrote. We take Fridays off here always. This coming Monday on August 12th, GEOFF SHEPARD is going to be here. His documentary called Watergate Secrets and Betrayals dropped today. He was on Tucker Carlson today. So I was emailing. I emailed a broadcast friend of mine in the business, and I said, "Yeah, I got Tucker's seconds. I got the sloppy seconds. I'll take Tucker's sloppy seconds anytime. I will." So GEOFF SHEPARD went on Tucker today. They did a 2.5-hour interview, which I personally think is nuts. And I'm the guy who can talk forever. I can, but still, I just think I don't. I won't watch it. I mean, you would think, okay, I got to do this interview on Monday. I would at least prepare by listening. I'm not going to watch this. I'm not going to spend 2 hours of my life doing anything. You know, it's like I won't. So, and I don't care about listening in the background, any of that stuff. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm definitely going to watch the documentary. It's available at WatergateSecret.com. It's $3 to watch it. I'm definitely going to watch it before Monday. But anyway, Geoff Shepard's here. We're taking the rest of the week off. And part of the reason we're doing that is we're coming back on Monday the 19th. That is the first night of the Democratic National Convention, and we have 4 nights of special shows planned for the convention. And here's the other thing. I'm not absolutely announcing this. I will tell you on Monday. But I think for that week, we're going to start an hour earlier. We're going to start at 10 p.m. Eastern instead of 11. I think that's our plan right now. We'll find out. And here's the reason. We have this month in review panel, these 3 guys, Don Zoro, Tim Conaway, Larry Newman, that come on about once a month. They come on for special occasions. They come on for the Republican National Convention. They come on for debates. If there's any sort of special political thing on TV, they always come on right after. They're basically, let's say, they're a commentary team, and they're fantastic. And when we put them on, we get our best viewership ever, except the last time. The last time they came on was after Trump's speech at the Republican National Convention, and we announced and told everybody our broadcast will start as soon as Trump's done speaking. Well, Trump didn't stop speaking or stop speaking. He didn't finish his speech until 12:30 a.m. Eastern, an hour, 90 minutes after we normally start. And so we started our show then. We did an hour, and hardly anybody watched it. And I had friends who said, well, I tried to tune in, and it wasn't there. Yeah, and it wasn't. That's right. It wasn't there for another 90 minutes. That's right. That's the thing. So we're going to try something different this time. We're going to try the opposite. We're going to try starting earlier and see if the viewership actually picks up. So anyway, and also on Thursday night, I don't care what Kamala says. I really don't. I don't give a crap. Woman's just a freaking airhead. So yeah. So that's what's going on here. So now you can call in tonight. The interviews pre-taped, so we can't take any calls during that. But we'll come back after part 3. If you want, you can call in. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, if you don't call in right away, we might can the show relatively early. That's relatively. We usually run about 90 minutes here. So, because apparently the host needs a nap. What the hell? What am I doing? Okay, so I did mention to you. So Trump says he's agreed to 3 debates with Kamala. She has not agreed at all yet, and they're going to keep her in the basement. Yeah. Now Walz, I'm not the only commentator who said this. Walz is a little better on his feet talking. He is. Now, so far, the conservative press has completely run this guy over the coals. I'd say largely deserved, not entirely, but largely. I've mentioned this before, and I've dealt with Tim Walz personally. I've had personal dealings with him. I find him on a personal level, he's an okay guy. I have to admit, and I don't say that about everybody, because I also dealt with Keith Ellison in the same meeting, the Minnesota Attorney General, who's one of the. I have met few people in my life who made his worst first impression of this guy. I'll be perfectly blunt. This is my personal opinion that he's an asshole. I really, seriously, I just say he completely turned me off, totally. Walz, I thought, made a pretty good first impression. I can't deny that. I can't vote for the guy because of his policies, which is a reason actually you shouldn't either. All this stuff about his, what his rank was when he left the National Guard and all that stuff may or may not be true. I don't think it matters myself either way. The point is comes down to 2 things. What do they want to do, and can they do it? Okay. What they want to do is nuts. I've said this in the previous broadcasts. It's not that they will destroy democracy. That's bullshit. That's not going to happen. They will destroy the U.S. economy. That will happen almost for sure. And if they have destroyed it already, I mean, I went to McDonald's yesterday. I got a quarter pounder cheese combo meal, a quarter pounder cheese, fries, and a drink. And my drink was unsweetened iced tea. Doesn't matter. It's all included. $13. Now, I go to McDonald's enough to know that 2 years ago that was $10. So it's gone up 30% in 2 years. That's crazy crap. And then I read these surveys in the business news about the fact that middle class and lower class people have stopped going to fast food restaurants because it's too damn expensive. And that's the point. You know, those are the people you want to go. That's your target audience. Because the people who can afford it, well, they'll go to sit down restaurant, even if they don't have time. Where will they go? They'll go to Chipotle stuff. Oh, and don't get me started on that. The prices at Chipotle have gone up too. I mean, I don't have to tell you. I do the grocery shopping in my family. I do because I like to do it, because I like to see what products are available. I like to see what people are inventing and starting and all sorts. I just like it. So I do all the shopping. My wife hates shopping, so I do it. And it's like, I don't have to tell you, if you do this shopping in the last 2 years, I'm not talking about 3 years now. You can go back to 21. I know it already started, but the perception is in the last 2 years, prices at the grocery store have gone up 30%. That's the perception. I know that's not true, and it varies. Obviously, it varies from one item to the next. I think in reality it's 20%. But it appears for anything that you want that's important to you, at least important to me, or anything that's a staple in your grocery cart, it seems to be 30%. And the amazing thing is now the Biden-Harris administration, they're starting a task force to figure out why the major grocery chains are gouging prices. They're not gouging. That's the thing. This is bullshit. This is a cover for the fact that for your ineptitude on handling the COVID crisis, because that's where this all comes from. Anybody who knew anything about economics, me sitting at home in my underwear in Minneapolis watching Fox News, could have told you that if you pump that much money into the economy, you'll get inflation. Everybody told them. I mean, Leslie. Oh God, what's his name? Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham was going on and on about this before they actually pulled the trigger. He said, "You are going to destroy. This is just inflation is going to run rampant." And God knows he was right. And but apparently Joe Biden, in his mind, omnipotent mind, he thought, well, I can beat this, just like the Democratic socialists think. Well, the problem with socialism is that no one's ever done it right. We can actually do it correctly. Yeah, it's failed before, but yeah, it's just never been done right. It's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. I mean, that's all we get. And that's the reason you should listen to David Strom's interview in a couple of minutes here, because he talks about how they disseminate this bullshit in very specific terms. He explains it. Oh, man. Okay. Rashida Tlaib is claiming that the Israelis are supporting rape over in Gaza, and Cori Bush, of course, lost her bid for re-election. Second squad member that has. We have to come to terms with the fact here in the United States that these people in the so-called squad are just batshit crazy. They're nuts. I mean, do we need to have an intelligence test to get into Congress? I mean, do we? Cori Bush is crazy. I mean, I can't put it in any other more forthright terms. This woman is completely effing nuts. She's nuts. She's no business even being a checkout person at Safeway, let alone being in Congress. She's too crazy to work in any job, and yet she's a congresswoman. It's unbelievable. Also, what happened today, and this is actually very important, and that is, this is the World Federation of Advertisers announced it is shutting down the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. That's GARM, or GARM for short. And GARM was supposedly their arm that, of course, was scouring the internet for misinformation. So misinformation was anybody who didn't agree with them, which of course included Twitter. And basically, I mean, we don't run advertising here. We have one sponsor, that's it. But we don't run any what's called network advertising. But Elon Musk sued them. And in the process of suing them, they realized, oh my God, we can't afford the legal bills, so they quit, which is a huge it's a huge victory for anybody who values free speech, because they'll say, oh yeah, you can say whatever you want, but we're going to make sure you don't get paid to say it. That's basically the modus operandi. And of course, if you're not getting paid, generally you won't work. There's another thing that I have a hard time with. Okay, so Axios, the left-wing news site, they announced they're laying off 10% of their staff. In the process of making that announcement, they have 500 employees. They have 500 employees? What do those people do? They have 500 to run that chintzy little website. They have 500 employees. I've run huge websites, folks. I have. In the 1990s, Web 1.0, I ran one of the largest websites on the internet. I know how many people it takes to do this. Now, compare that with the Tampa Bay Tribune. They are laying off some of their staff too, and that newspaper is 140 years old. They have 270 employees, and the things, they're still printing a physical paper, which is still to this day. I mean, it is amazing how much that's been systematized, and so that it can be done relatively effective or efficiently, and therefore cost efficiently. But yeah, it's still a huge pain in the ass to print a physical paper, and that's including the people in the print department. They have 270 employees. That makes sense. I see that. Axios has 500 employees to run a stupid frickin' website. That's just absurd. Another thing I found out too, and I'm actually a big fan of these people, but it still surprised the crap out of me. The Daily Caller, or the Daily Wire, excuse me. I want to make sure I get this right. The Daily Wire, they laid off people too. They have 1,500 employees. Now they're known mostly for the podcasts. Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro. Who else they got over there? They have names you've heard of. I mean, they run about half a dozen or so very high caliber podcasts. And they're daily, they're video. They do a really good job of this. So I understand it takes some. I got nobody here, and and people are bitching about that. I need a director really bad. I really do, but I can't afford it yet. But they can afford it, and so I understand they have the people to put on these podcasts. Like Ben Shapiro, I was just saying earlier, he had his 2000th broadcast. Now his show is not only going out on video and audio, live and on demand. It's also on the radio now. It's on terrestrial radio, so he has to hit some postmarks and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I'm sure his podcast probably has a staff, a direct staff of 8 to 10 people is my guess, to handle all that. And that's cool, right? That would be about right. But their company has 1,500 employees. And what the fuck? I don't understand. You should be able to run that company with like three, even including the broadcast staffs of the podcast, with maybe 300 people is my guess. I mean, I don't know. It's like it just mind boggles me. Axios has 500 employees. What do they do? It's like they're not writing. That's for damn sure. I mean, what do you got? They got probably 2 or 3 dozen columnists. I mean, now that can compare that with like we have a relationship with the Salem Media, the Town Hall Media properties. It's a very informal relationship. We have no tie with them directly at all. We have a lot of people from Red State and Hot Air on the show, and I suppose if I want to get somebody on from PJ Media or Town Hall, I would just have to make a call because they're all connected. So, Red State just had their 20-year anniversary. Very cool. And I think they have 24 employees, if I'm right, total. I think that even includes part-time writers too. They have 24 employees, and that would be about right. That's what I guess. Hot Air, where David works, I wouldn't. I'm guessing maybe they have 12 or 15 people, maybe more when you put in the webmasters and stuff like that. But yeah, that's about how much people you need to run a website like that. Axios, that's hilarious. I've heard this. I just and I hate to say this because first of all, it might be inaccurate. It seems to be a liberal thing. I've noticed that when liberals start these media companies, and almost all of them are started by liberals, they seem to hire a zillion people. Like, what's the one that just closed? It was called, oh shit, I can't remember. But yeah, they had like 1,500 employees, and they went belly up really, really quick. I mean, they weren't even around for a year, and they completely folded up. Like, why did you hire all? What do you think you have to hire those? I mean, I don't understand. Maybe it's lack of experience of the people running this stuff. I have no idea. I don't really know. Anyway, so the Global Alliance for Responsible Media shut down. And you can thank Elon Musk for that. And they were targeting a whole bunch of people, Breitbart, basically all of conservative media. They targeted and helped people starve. That was great. So it was great for them. So it was great. Now it's great that they're out of business. That's what I think. All right, let's go to David. But before that, I want to run our little commercial here. Here's the front page of Conk News. They're a sponsor. Conk News is a news aggregator. They take news from 75 different news sources every 3 hours and lay them out on front page. It's all automated. In this case, automation is a good thing because humans couldn't do this. So these servers go out every three hours. They find on these 75 websites, they find all the news that they haven't collected already. They bring it all back, and then the servers lay it out on the front page with the newest stories first. Now, the big thing here, and as far as I know, Conk News is the only news aggregator on the internet that does this. The big thing is that it's not like the top stories from Breitbart siloed and the Gateway Pundit siloed, or it's like, not their top five stories. They're all mixed together and with the newest ones, regardless of source, at the top. So that's the cool thing. It's like it's the closest thing you'll find to an old style newspaper online. That's the way I look at it. So you look here. I mean, this is a really interesting article. I was looking about this today. I didn't notice. I don't know if this normally this page flips over around this time. Like I said, it's every 3 hours. So a lot of times the page I call this up before we go on the air. The page I call up is not the same as one that we see when I do this. But this is apparently they're saying that, and that's hotair.com in the top left corner, that Ukraine has invaded Russia. And I want to get that straight. They're not saying Russia's invaded Ukraine. They're saying Ukraine invaded Russia. Apparently, Ukrainian forces moved into Russia proper and started taking over some towns, and they're succeeding. That's the amazing thing. This must be very, very new. I mean, I follow the news all day long. I did not see this until I actually brought this up to prepare for this commercial. So I don't know what's going on there right now, but I read a little bit of it, and they said so far the Russian troops are scattering, believe it or not. So this is an interesting development. It's like and no one was expecting that. And so far, so good, I guess. I don't know. My picture's in the top right corner because they sponsor the show. Very nice of them. So this happens every 3 hours. You can go here. You can read. Even if you only click through to a few stories, you can spend a couple of hours reading this. The pictures are from the stories themselves. The headlines are not rewritten. They're also from the stories. And if you click through, you go directly to that story. There's no ad, no interstitial page, no homepage, nothing. You go directly to the story. And then all repeats every 3 hours. You come back 5 hours later, 80% of the stories have changed, and the old ones are pushed to the bottom. So you can't find a better news source to this, and here's the real amazing thing. It's free. It's not just free. You don't have to register. You don't have to log in, sign up, subscribe, none of that crap. You just go to conk.com, CONK.com, or you can also go to conk.news, CONK.news. Either one will take you to this. It's totally free. I use this all the time. I'm the former employee here, and I'm proud to be associated with this organization and this product. It's fantastic. So check that out when you get a chance. Conk.com, CONK.com. And now, here's 12 seconds of bumper music, and then we'll put David Strom on. Here we go. Joining us from his home. I caught that.
Yep. Nicotine gum, man.
Joining us from his home in Northeast Minneapolis. No, you're in North Minneapolis. I'm in Northeast Minneapolis. Not that anybody cares, but still. David Strom, Associate Editor of HotAir.com. How are you?
I'm doing great, except I live in Minnesota.
Well, we might be getting rid of our governor, but I hope we hope we aren't. So, you know.
Yeah, no. My wife Margaret, who works at the Senate, we're about to be unburdened by what has been.
Yeah, yes. Well, okay. First of all, before I get on to the stuff you've been writing, just like we were saying before we went on the air here, is starting to get truly scary. But I actually had a little revelation myself this morning. I'm starting to think there won't be a debate. I don't think they can afford to expose their stupidity. I don't.
I don't know. I mean, clearly with the Biden debate, they expected CNN to come in and save Joe Biden's butt. But first of all, there was no way to do that given the condition that Biden was in that night.
Right.
And second of all, CNN got brushed back. Trump and company worked the rest before, and they actually ran probably the best presidential debate I have seen in many, many years on CNN. I mean, I just have to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
They did a great job. Of course, it's not going to be those guys next time. The first debate that Kamala wants is ABC with George Snuffleup, I guess. And,
yeah.
I mean, he's just absurd. Donald Trump, why are you lying about Kamala Harris, who is, the rebirth of Jack Kennedy, Barack Obama, and George Washington?
When did you stop beating your wife?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it is absolutely absurd. I mean, we have gotten to the point now where the mainstream media is going out of their way to avoid asking Kamala Harris questions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw what I thought was just some of the funniest trolling ever, which was J.D. Vance, who was at the same airport as Kamala Harris. So he went over.
Yeah.
And he went and talked to the press pool and basically said, well, since you guys haven't been able to ask any questions of anyone for the past 3 weeks, I'm here. And they literally only asked him one question. I mean, these people are either so out of practice or so in the tank for Kamala that, given an opportunity to actually generate news, they just stood there drooling.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I really did. Awful.
You're an old man, man.
I am an old man. Thanks for reminding me. Thanks for reminding the viewers. Yeah, I'm an old man. But I want to get on to something you wrote about, and I think you only posted this like 2 or 3 hours ago. We're taping this at 2:30 Central Time on Thursday afternoon. This thing about the anatomy of brainwashing. This is just so freaking frightening. And you've been writing stories kind of about this for like several weeks now. But this one, because of basically you laid out the times and named names, and it's just, so you want to explain what's going on here? And I'm going to link to this, so people should read this. It's important.
Well, first, let me give credit to Matt. I think it's Orfalia, who works with uh, uh, Matt Taibbi over
Hmm.
at Public, because he did a lot of the groundwork on this. But you're right. I have been spending a lot of time discussing the fact that we're really living in a simulated reality right now, or at least half the people are living in a simulated reality. They've been brainwashed, and I don't mean that as an insult to them.
Yeah.
It's just that
I want to point out too, you're not using that as a euphemism either. You're
no.
literally talking about the fact people are being brainwashed. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it has to do with the fact that they live in a created reality. And, we have an opportunity right now because of the total collapse of Joe Biden on stage, for everybody to see, to sort of snap our fingers and try to get people out of this. You have been lied to consistently. And what I laid out in that post today is the techniques that are used, and they're extremely sophisticated. It goes far beyond the sort of constant lying that you see on the mainstream media. I mean, they're actually sophisticated intelligence, military intelligence and CIA created techniques that are now being turned on the US population. And what's so useful about what Matt put out was a Zoom call that was recorded among the Biden people, detailing exactly what they were doing. And I mean, it's very clear, they had a brainwashing technique that basically combined the censorship that we know about with a highly sophisticated technique of targeting people. Literally, anyone who searched for Biden and senility, they would have a cookie, and then they would start feeding them information all across the internet. And you can also do this with cable TV ads, where you can actually target individuals. I don't know if
Hmm.
most people know that, but the technology exists now to push information, ads, certain types of videos that aren't even appearing to be ads. They appear to be news. And so, back in 2019, they had a lot of data that people had noticed that Joe Biden was slipping. And about 20 or 30% of the population was concerned enough that they were searching online, looking up senility information. Is Joe Biden slipping? And, there are all sorts of ways that you can collect this data about what people are interested in. And so they started tracking those people specifically. And it was a significant fraction of the population. I don't remember what the numbers were, but it was about 8% of people online. And so they started targeting them with videos that had, this wasn't when they were searching for Biden. They
Yeah.
would just pop up at various times
No,
as
we
if
should
they were.
explain to people. We're assuming most people know this. When you talk about cookies, you're talking about a piece of code that's placed in your browser that follows you around the internet. And that's how they're able to do this. So once you leave Google, you could still go to any site you can think of, and you might get a Biden ad, or like you're talking about a video or something. Yeah, that's
Oh
where
yeah.
we're right.
Yeah, this is why your computer often seems to be predicting what you're doing. They have
Right.
tracked everything and
Right.
stored it often on your computer without you really knowing it. And so you had this sophisticated brainwashing campaign that they laid out because they were quite proud of it, and they were spreading the techniques among themselves. And these people went into the Biden administration afterwards. They used the same techniques during COVID, and they combine that with jawboning or forcing big tech to suppress certain information, to push other information, to call certain things trusted sources, and other things got suppressed. And the idea, not just the idea, what they did was they shaped the information sphere that most people could see. cut off certain parts. So, the advantage that conservatives have is not that they're any smarter than anyone else. You get pretty much the same distributions of intelligence and education. In fact, probably conservatives are generally a bit less educated.
However, we're more sane, and that's yes.
Yes, and one of the reasons why is that we have better bullshit meters, and that's not accidental.
No, I know that.
One of the things about the education complex is attaching you to experts, making you trust certain sources and push other sources away, which is why they always say, don't do your own research. 97% of experts say X. Now, for you and me, it's like, well, that's a big red flag. I mean, It's like there's, 97% of people don't agree that drinking water is a good thing. It's like, it's literally impossible. But if you're a highly educated person, particularly, if you're sort of, slightly above average in intelligence, and you want to think you're even more than slightly above average, you're going to lean very heavily on a certain class of information and say, well, I read this in the New York Times. It's like those people who say, I went to Harvard, as if that's supposed to say that you're right about something. Whereas, most of us who live in the real world sort of, we can smell bullshit better. But the problem is, and why, in fact, I've had this conversation with my dad because he was kind of red-pilled by the Biden stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's now asking me for sources, and I'm trying to give him non-right-wing sources, but just sources like the Free Press or something. So it's not going to have any trigger words for him.
Right.
You have to seek those out, right? I mean, even sort of semi-mainstream alternative media like the Free Press, it's not something that pops up. You have to go there, you have to subscribe, you have to go to seek out Hot Air or Town Hall Media or the Daily Wire. They're not listed as the trusted news sources. So we're excluded from the sort of Truman Show reality that's being created for most people. And if you rely on CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News, you're getting a very curated view of the world. Sort of the New York, Washington, D.C. centric world. And so, and that is a created world. I mean, just as during COVID, they literally deployed psychological warfare units in Great Britain. And I'm sure they did the same thing here through the intelligence organizations. I mean, we know the FBI was jawboning social media. To curate what people saw, which is why you saw a large number of people go, what under other circumstances would be, clinically insane. I mean, people walking up to you in a store and screaming at you if you don't have a mask. And some of these people are so broken that they're wearing masks in 2024.
Well, let me ask you about this. Was it Hot Air? Was it you? I can't remember. I read some piece on some town hall Salem media property about this woman who had a bat fly into her apartment. Was that you? I can't even remember. So the thing is,
Bees wrote something, and I think Jazz wrote something.
Oh yeah. Explain it.
All right. Yeah. No. This is a perfect. Oh, I wrote on this too. It is a perfect example of how broken some people are. Here you have this college professor woman who had a letter to the editor published in the New York Times. So, college professor, New York Times, explaining why we need Kamala Harris to be president. And her explanation was, a bat flew into my house and it didn't bite anyone, it didn't touch anyone, and they eventually got it out of the house. And she called the CDC. She went on Google. She called animal control. She went to the hospital to get rabies shots for her and her husband. And the upshot of this was, if Kamala Harris were president, the federal government would be preventing things like this. All right. And so you go, well, all right, they're just nutty people in the world, and fine. But the New York Times published this as if it were like an argument.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. So it doesn't surprise me that there's some mentally ill college professor out there. I mean, there are plenty of them. What surprises me is that these people live in such a bubble that they believe, or pretend to believe, or whatever, that all problems can be taken care of. First of all, you're at risk of being in the same breathing space as a bat, which is ridiculous. That you need to get rabies shots.
Oh, and we should point out, rabies shots is a really serious thing. If you don't want to fuck with that.
So, I mean, you see how broken people are. They are literally mentally ill. And a lot of that mental illness has been systematically created. Look at how frightened so many people in the left are. They're frightened of viruses. They're frightened of disease. They're frightened of bats. Now, I don't like bats. If a bat got into my limited amount of hair here, it would scare the hell out of me.
Right.
But I've been in the same room as a bat that flew into my bedroom, and I spent an hour getting it out and everything. But it never occurred to me that the federal government was going to come save me.
Right. It never occurred to you to get a rabies shot either, did it?
No, it didn't bite me.
Right.
But I mean, these are the same people who think that our democracy's at risk. That somehow, I mean, it's Scott Adams, who does Coffee with Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy. Has spent a lot of time talking about the whole insurrection narrative. And he says, if you break it down, essentially the argument is that they tried to take over the country with paperwork.
That's right.
I mean, they went in, they had a riot, but no one thought that they were like literally going to take over the government, unarmed, 1,000 people inside. No, it was like they were preventing the paperwork from being filed. All right. It's like, all right, explain to me how that's going to change anything.
Right.
I mean, it's like, oh my God, a bureaucratic checkbox was
Let me ask you, David, though, do you think this woman with the bat, what percentage of the population does she represent? Do you think?
I think she is at the tail end of the distribution, but she's within the Overton window. The window of acceptable opinion.
Right.
And we know that because she's published in the New York Times.
Exactly.
That's the Overton window.
That's right.
So this is, the New York Times did not consider this so absurd that it should have gone into the trash can. They considered it so sane that they published it.
Yes.
And maybe they thought it was she's a little extreme, but it's worth people reading it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the number of letters to the editor that the New York Times gets. It must be thousands a day.
Right.
And they picked this.
Yes.
So, these are very curated things. And that is the key thing to understand. Everything you see on TV in mainstream publications is curated. And certain things are emphasized, other things are deprecated. And so suddenly that's how you've got in one day on just CNN and MSNBC, the word weird was used to describe J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
So almost 200 times in one day.
Right.
That does not happen by accident.
Of course not.
And
Hey,
in fact,
let me ask you something. I have a theory here, and I don't know, you might know about that. I kind of assume there is some secret internet bulletin board somewhere that a lot of the liberal media actually logs into to actually talk about this shit. I don't know where it is. I don't know. It probably doesn't have a domain, probably an IP address. I have no, but do you know anything about that? Or have you ever heard that
well,
before?
I know that there was one that was semi-open called Journalist, and once it got and where they literally all got together and conspired. This was during the Bush administration, and I don't know how they do it now. It could be through a WhatsApp or an encrypted app. But yes, they've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
And for a while, it was actually done on Twitter, which is why they went absolutely batshit crazy when Elon Musk took over Twitter, because it was their app. And still to this day, I get, since I'm on Twitter all the time, I get to see the narrative develop in real time.
Yeah.
You can actually see them testing out certain things and seeing people's reactions, and something that grabs people's attention a little bit more suddenly explodes. So it's kind of a testing ground. Again, part of the psychological warfare.
Well, you wrote a piece about that this morning.
Yes.
There's a two-piece. I mean, really, as bookends, are fantastic. Your first piece was basically about kind of like how they test this out, and the second piece was about the sophisticated method they're actually using.
Yeah, well, you can also see in that first piece I wrote, what's so important about this is showing the key part that the mainstream media plays in this, and it's self-conscious. There's, that one was the example of J.D. Vance and the couch.
Yeah, right.
That by now everyone's heard of, and the Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are actually using this in their rallies now. So how did this?
Hold on, before you go on. So he's given that first speech in Philadelphia, and he talks about the fact, I want to debate J.D. Vance if he gets off the couch, and then he says, "You see what I did there?" And I'm thinking, what a dork.
Yeah.
And then, but I thought, okay, that's a good word. But then I'm listening to Joe Pags on the radio at 6:00, and he says, "No, doofus." And I thought, well, that's better.
Doofus. Yeah.
He's a doofus.
But this was actually a well planned out and coordinated campaign that goes back about 2 weeks. And it was tied into the weird.
Yeah.
Both of these things were planned out together. And so how did the couch thing come about? Because it's invented out of thin air. And
right.
what happened was there was a guy with a small account that's gone. He has deleted it. And so he drops this in there. Nobody sees it. And suddenly the Associated Press does a fact check.
Yeah.
And the Associated Press goes out to every news source in the world, basically. Anyone who subscribes to the Associated Press, which is everybody, gets this fact check. And then
I have a question. And maybe I didn't catch this, but I didn't think you answered in your piece. The guy who originally posted this on Twitter, who had a nothing account, was that deliberate, or did he just post some that says bullshit and somebody said, "Oh, that's brilliant, let's run with it"?
He says he got interviewed by Bloomberg, and he says he was just shit posting.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah, but still, I want to know what you think. So,
and the reason why I don't believe that is, how would the Associated Press get it? I mean, it's an account that nobody saw.
Yeah.
Now, the Associated Press does a fact check, which it goes out with a huge headline that says J.D. Vance did not have sex with a couch.
Which is,
and it's like nobody thought he did.
Well, we have to bring up, and you're a student of political science. It's like, so in the early 1960s, before he became vice president, Lyndon Baines Johnson ran what was called the the pig fucker campaign. And normally I couldn't say that on the radio, but I can here. So the deal So Johnson said to his staff, and I can't remember who his opponent was, tell them that he likes to have sex with pigs. And they said, well, we can't do that, Senator. That's like terrible. He said, yeah, it's terrible, but he'll have to deny it. And that's what's going on here.
That's exactly the same thing. You know, it's
right.
this sort of smear by association.
Right.
I did not, and suddenly people are discussing, did he have sex with pigs or not? And so the Associated Press injected this. And then they retracted it a few hours later saying, well, this didn't meet our standards. No one was talking about it. But suddenly everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
And so it then goes on to Twitter, where all the leftist influencers are pushing this. All right. So millions of people, from a nothing account to the Associated Press to these accounts out there that millions of people are seeing. And then it goes to Colbert starts talking about it. And then suddenly you have Tim Walz and Kamala Harris talking about it, the DNC, Kamala HQ. And this is at the same time they're saying JD Vance is weird.
Yeah.
All right. He's so weird, in fact, that he fucks couches.
Right.
All right. So you can see, once you sort of see the key part, it's like, well, this was coordinated from the very beginning. And the key part of it was the Associated Press.
Right.
The most influential, most people don't realize this because it's not a brand name, but it is the most influential news outlet in the world. The majority of news stories that are published in the world come from the Associated Press. And that's because no one can have reporters everywhere, but they need to have news from everywhere.
Right.
So they all subscribe to the Associated Press, which has affiliate reporters everywhere. They pay a subscription fee for it. And so the New York Times sets the narrative, the Associated Press puts it out.
Yeah.
And so someone at the Associated Press decided to coordinate with the Democrats to create this smear, and then they go, this didn't meet our standards.
Well, yeah, and also it should be pointed out what they printed was factually correct. He did not have sex with the couch, so that's you can get you can't tell them kind of accuse them of lying. You can't.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like saying there's absolutely no proof that Tim Walz had an orgy with cows, pigs, and 6-year-olds.
That's right.
All right. Now, and let's discuss this for days. All right. I mean, it's like.
Have you ever thought, this has occurred to me. We could, on the stupid little show, which probably has 15 more followers than that guy's account, we could start the same damn thing.
Yeah, well, if the Associated Press wanted to do a fact check on it, it suddenly goes everywhere. And that was the point.
The Daily Caller news service or something. I don't know. It's like,
I mean, it is the slimiest thing in the world. It was coordinated. It is, in my mind, proof positive that the mainstream media, and we all know it anyway, but they directly coordinated with the Kamala Harris campaign, the DNC. And I have no evidence for this at all, but it has all, as they say, all the earmarks of an intelligence operation.
Right. I want to get back to what you were talking about before about the fact the brainwashing techniques they were using. So all right, you're talking about placing cookies in people's browsers. You can't really do that without the coordination of the tech firms, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can pay them, but I mean, all these things are things that, I mean, it's not like they naturally happen.
Right.
They get placed on your computer for a reason, and these people paid to have it happen. They paid to follow people around the web. It's not like I can find out what you're doing. What's Jim doing? I mean, I've got to find a way to get a big tech company, an advertising company, somebody to do this. It costs me money to make that happen. And so it's a very intentional thing. It's extremely sophisticated. It's exactly the sort of thing that was done in the color revolutions during the Obama administration.
Hmm.
Uh, so, you know, when you saw those, they weren't coups, but sort of the revolutions in Eastern Europe where anti-American leaders were replaced with pro-American leaders in Ukraine, among other places. And I'm not saying those were horrible things or good things. I'm just saying this is how they do it.
Right.
Uh, and there really isn't any secret that the United States government does these things. I mean, we have entire propaganda arms and outlets. The Voice of
Yeah.
America, the State Department has a news service, and it's all part of the same brainwashing
But
operation. We don't tend
as you pointed out in your piece, I don't think people realize it's being done to American citizens. That's the
that
difference.
that is the difference. I mean, most Americans assume that we're doing this elsewhere and even
Right.
approve of it for obvious reasons. You're
As
supposed
far
to
as you
defend
know,
Americans.
are the Republicans doing the same thing with the cookie type thing?
I do not know, to be perfectly honest. They certainly are not as sophisticated, and they certainly do not have big tech. I'm sure they have cookies for advertising. I doubt it goes, and for
Yeah.
years you were able to regionally locate.
Right.
Now you can get down to the individual.
Yeah.
And, uh, uh, you know, again, Scott Adams, Coffee with Scott Adams, good podcast to listen to. He does it every day. He discusses brainwashing a lot. He's a hypnotist, among
Yeah.
other things. And
Hmm.
so he recognizes a lot of these things right away. Uh, and the big difference is, persuading people, spinning. People know when they're hearing from a partisan that they are being spun. All right. You can listen and go, yeah, well, no, I'm kind of persuaded by that, or I'm not persuaded by that. But it's like talking to a salesman.
Yeah.
All right. You know what their agenda is, and you either buy it or you don't. What was distinctive about the Democrats was they were specifically trying to deceive you and ensure that you had no idea. They wanted you to see certain information and hear other information. So, masks work. Well, no, they don't. The vaccines, prevent infection and transmission. Well, no, they don't. They suppressed as misinformation true information. In fact, if you go into that brainwashing article, they discuss this, that the most dangerous misinformation is the truth. So we have to, and they actually say we have to find a way to suppress people saying true things.
Right. David, let me ask you. You've been involved in a lot of congressional and Senate campaigns. When was the last time you actually worked for anything like that?
2018.
Was any of this stuff going on or even alluded to then? Right.
No.
Didn't think so. Right.
No, not even close. I mean,
Yeah.
in a gubernatorial campaign, you have maybe $3 million if you're a
Right.
Republican in Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in order to build something like this out, it would cost multiples of that. I
Yeah.
mean, and it would require the cooperation of the media and big tech to help you out. There's just no way. I mean, when we had arguments about advertisements, it was always, well, is it really ethical to go there? I mean, it's just an entirely different. For instance, we had when I was working for Jeff Johnson, someone who was the mother of a child who was victimized and murdered,
Mm-hmm.
and she blamed the other candidate. And she offered to do a commercial for us, and we eventually decided not to do it because we just thought it was, too emotionally charged, that
Right.
you shouldn't accuse this guy of aiding and abetting a murder, even though it's an argument that you could make.
Right.
We just now the Democrats don't do that. I mean, I remember the Democrats when I was working for Tom Emmer essentially accused him of murdering someone as a drunk driver. All right.
Yeah.
And he had in his early 20s gotten a DUI. And what they did was they had, his mugshot for the DUI. And then they had, some mother of a child who had been killed by a drunk driver. And they implied that Tom Emmer was the drunk driver, which he wasn't. I mean, he didn't hit anyone. There was no accident. It was a stupid, youthful thing. But they're just slime balls.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Absolutely disgusting slime balls. And Republicans that I have ever dealt with refuse to play that game. And maybe that's stupid. We were certainly called stupid. And we did have big arguments about it. But the candidate just said, I'm not going to go there. I have to look in the mirror. And Democrats, when they look in the mirror, they see geniuses. They're sociopaths.
All right, we only got about 1 minute here, but I got to ask you. So, with this pick of Walz for Harris, was it a colossally stupid mistake from a strategic standpoint?
Josh Shapiro was the obvious choice. He was rejected because of the anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party. And Tim Walz is what a San Francisco liberal thinks the Midwest looks like.
Yes.
I think that he's got to write out this stolen valor stuff. And if he does, then you've got the Minneapolis riots, which are the next thing. And so it's conceivable that this isn't a huge mistake, but right now it sure looks like the biggest unforced error I've seen in politics in a very long time.
Yeah. Did you see Trump tweeted only 2 words? Thank you.
Thank you.
And hey, David, thank you too. Really appreciate it. This is fantastic.
Always a pleasure.
I love talking to you. So yeah, always a pleasure. It is. You take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Did my mic come on in time? It did. It did. Our thanks to David Strom there. Always fascinating talking to that guy. Now, we're going to put links up to those 2 articles. Usually you put links up to his author page on Hot Air, and that would do the job. But I really, really want you to read these 2 articles, especially the second one. And I can't remember the name of the Michael Oliphant is the name of the guy he's talking about. And I read the article and dove into his tweets. I mean, he did the primary investigation and figuring out how they were doing this stuff. And kudos to him. Maybe we'll try to have him on the show. I mean, I got to say, it's easy for me to sit here, in my underwear in Northeast Minneapolis and give the legacy media a hard time, and they deserve it. But there's still a whole bunch of individual reporters who are doing incredible work. I mean, just incredible work. And I'm really glad I can say I know a few of them. David, Jazz Shaw, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell's on Red State, Now, they're primarily commentators and not necessarily reporters or investigators, but still, it's all kind of the same sort of thing. Michael Schellenberger is, I want to get him on the show too. We've had Patrick Moore on this program, and I know that him and Michael are good friends. So anyway, yeah, there's never a lull of people or a dearth of people to talk to. It just isn't. It's a fascinating world, folks. It just is. Now, I told you. So, our guest on Monday, GEOFF SHEPARD, talked to Tucker Carlson today for 2.5 hours. Seriously, really seriously. I mean, am I just old? What's the deal? I'm not going to spend. I wouldn't make love to Tommy Lahren for 2.5 hours. I wouldn't do that. It's like, no. At some point, let's turn the TV on. It's like, no. So I'm not going to devote my time to. I don't even want to watch movies anymore. I won't watch a movie that's longer than 2 hours. I won't. And so maybe it's just me. I don't know. Who am I to say that? Yeah, like Tucker, you're not going to be successful. Yeah, right. That's like the doctor told my mother. My mother just turned 100 about 3 years ago. I took her into the doctor to get her annual checkup. She's 97. And the doctor says, "Are you taking your blood pressure medication?" And my mother says, "No, it makes me feel lightheaded. I don't want to take it anymore." And the doctor says, "You should take it because not taking it could shorten your lifespan." And I looked at the doctor and said, "Do you realize what you just said?" To a 97-year-old woman. And here she is 3 years later. God bless her, still kicking. So, okay. So, yeah. So we're talking to Geoff Shepard on Monday. Then we're taking the rest of the week off. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of work to do, actually. And then we have a whole bunch of, a whole series of special shows the following week for the Democratic National Convention. And like I said, I'm not going to commit to announcing this until Monday, but we probably will start all the 4 shows that week an hour earlier. That would be at 10 p.m. Eastern rather than 11. So anyway, I want to thank you folks for watching. I want to thank David Strom for coming along for the ride. Always great to talk to him. I'm Jim Peters. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And good night to you, wherever you are. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday with Geoff Shepard. Take care, everybody.